Welcome to this presentation on the Articles of Confederation, the first Constitution of the United States. We're going to take a kind of overview of that Constitution. Again, it was the first United States Constitution approved in 1781 during the Revolutionary War. It's important to understand that date. The United States declared their independence from Great Britain in 1776. In 1781, we were still in the midst of fighting a war to assert our independence from Great Britain. And so you can see that it took actually 5 years for us to agree on any kind of coming together of the states. We were 13 separate states fighting a war against Britain, but we had no constitution until 1781. And so that suggests that there was reluctance to come together, and there was also concern about what coming together would actually look like. And in the end, the Constitution that we finally did adopt in 1781 proved to be a failed attempt to create a national government during a time when, because of the aggressive action of the British government, many people feared creating a new national government that would be potentially dangerous to state power and individual freedom. So there's two concerns here. One is the states did not want to give up their power to a national entity. They were very reluctant, especially in light of what the British government had done. So there's great fear of creating something that would replace the British government that would be just as bad or worse. And so there was a great desire to maintain the power of the states, the individual states. And there was also concern that a new national government would threaten the individual freedoms of the people. And so for that reason, the new Constitution ends up to be sort of reactionary and not a Constitution that ends up to be workable. So in the next two slides, we'll look at the structure of that new Constitution and the weaknesses that emerged from that structure. So the structure of the Articles of Confederation, the Articles created one unicameral legislature. Today, we have what we call bicameral legislature. We have two parts of our Congress. But under the Articles, there's only one part of the legislature. The legislature makes the law. And so the lawmaking body had only one part to it. Each state had one vote in that legislature. There was no executive branch of government and no judicial branch of government. There was just this one legislative body where each state had one vote. To pass a law, 9 of the 13 states had to agree. So a simple majority would have been 7 out of 13. But in this case, they required 9 states to agree to pass a law. And this is obviously an attempt to make it more difficult to pass a law. This is an attempt to limit the power of the newly created national government, and also to amend the articles to change them in any way. All 13 states had to agree. So there had to be unanimous agreement to change the Articles of Confederation in any way. And you can see that with this structure that the states were attempting to limit national power and to preserve state power, to keep power in the hands of the states. So emerging from this structure are some very obvious weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. First of all, there's no executive. There's no enforcement entity within the national government. And so assuming that the national government doesn't have power to enforce the laws that they make, then that power must reside with the state governments. And there's also no judiciary. The judicial branch of government interprets the laws. As we conflict over interpretation of laws, the judicial branch helps to work out those conflicts. There's no judicial branch in the national government under the Articles, and so again, that would assume that that power would be left to the states. The national government under the Articles had no power to tax. They could only request funding from the states, but they couldn't actually require it. And because of the 9-state requirement, it was very difficult to pass a law. It took a lot of support among the states to pass any law. And then the last weakness, it was almost impossible to amend because of the 13 state requirement. Just one state essentially had veto power over any changes to this document, and that again was intended so that um, the new government could not assume more power. One state could stop that from happening. Because the states feared giving up too much power to a national government, they created a national government that was too weak to function properly. That's the conclusion here. The structure of the government was flawed. It was designed to limit the power of the national government in such a way that the states would retain their power. But because of that, the national government proved to be too weak to be effective, too weak to function properly. And that is why in the coming years, in just a very short period of time, um, there developed a sort of consensus around the idea that this document had to be either changed uh, or replaced. So that's a kind of general understanding of what you need to know about the Articles of Confederation. The first United States Constitution didn't last very long, ended up to be very weak and ineffective.